Hello everyone, and welcome to Music Theory with GUIM. In this installment, we're going to explore a bit of Faure's music by looking at an excerpt from his composition for piano and cello titled Sicilienne. In this particular episode, we'll be investigating measures 1 through 9, but a lot of the information covered will reappear in later measures. But before we jump into the analysis, let's take a listen to the excerpt. Alright, so the opening measure prepares our ears for the tonal center, which is G minor. The first measure is merely an introduction, so the first phrase of the piece really begins on measure 2. In this measure, we hear G minor for the first 3 beats, but on beats 4 through 6, the bass tone moves to F, which makes a G minor 7 over F or a 1-4-2. Following this harmony, we then have E half diminished and D minor over F. Normally, I would analyze the half diminished chord as a 2 half diminished when resolving in this manner, which means it would be a secondary or applied harmony. This would mean we have a 2 half diminished of 5 and then a minor 5-6. In this case, however, I'm going to consider the half diminished as a 6 half diminished because this section is strongly pulling towards the Dorian sound. And this is further reinforced in the following measure by B flat major, the flat 3 appearing with C major over G, the major 4-6-4. So again, we're hearing that major 6th E pop up rather than the typical minor 6th E flat. You can also choose to think of C major over G as simply an upper structure and look at this entire measure as C major over B flat major, or B flat major 13 sharp 11 with no major 7th. Moving forward, we then have D major, the 5 chord, to finish off this first phrase. And though you might have heard that modes are not supposed to change their pitch collection, it really depends on what period you're talking about. For instance, 16th century polyphony regularly alters the notes in a mode, and though some people believed that this detracted from the mode, that doesn't mean you can't do it, especially nowadays. Furthermore, Faure did have very extensive training in modal music, which had a huge impact on his sound, so I tend to keep this in mind when I'm looking at Faure's music. As a result, I'm going to consider this entire phrase as being from the Dorian mode. Following this 5 chord, we resolve to the 1 and we repeat the progression of G minor to G minor 7 over F. In the next measure, however, we hear F minor 7 over E flat. This would be the minor flat 7-4-2 and gives a hint of the Phrygian mode with its usage of the flat 2 scale degree A flat, and also has us hearing the minor 6th E flat. That said, following F minor 7 over E flat, we have G7 over D, which is not a continuation of the Phrygian sound. So perhaps F minor 7 over E flat is something other than just a minor flat 7 chord. And by looking ahead into the next measure, we see that our suspicions are confirmed because C7 appears. As a result, we're going to think of F minor 7 over E flat as a minor 4-2 of 4, and G7 over D as 5-6-5 of 4. So in this next measure, we have C7, but unlike G7, it is not a secondary dominant. Instead, it is a result of the Dorian pitch collection, which consists of a dominant 4-7 diatonically. And considering all of the previous information, I'm going to think of this as being in Dorian, but we can also source C7 from the melodic minor. And this is certainly a viable option because we have D7, the 5-7, occurring in the latter half of this measure. And for the last measure of the phrase, we have G minor, the 1 chord. And with all measures analyzed harmonically, let's go back and take a look at a few different things. Firstly, notice how the bass is moving. For the first 1.5 measures of the first phrase, we have a descending line of G, F, and E, but then the direction of movement is put in reverse and the bass steps upward to F. In the second phrase, however, the bass actually continues downward. E flat is the flat 6 scale degree, which has a strong pull towards the 5th, D. So I find it really clever that Faure uses E to F or a 6 to flat 7 as an ascending semitone resolution in the first phrase, but then a flat 6 to 5 or a descending semitone resolution in the second phrase. Another interesting point harmonically is how B flat major and C major occur in the third measure of the first phrase, but C7 and D7 occur in the second phrase's third measure. Of course, the harmonic rhythm is different, but the correlation of harmonies with the same quality moving by stepwise motion is definitely intentional. And one last thing I want to mention regarding the harmony particularly pertains with C7 and D7. In that measure, Faure uses F sharp and A in the cello and E flat in the piano during the duration of C7. We can think of E flat as a chromatic passing tone connecting E and D, But in conjunction with F sharp and A, we can also think of it as an F sharp diminished 7 over E flat, the 7 diminished 4-2, and it's anticipating D7, or as a conglomerate, D7 flat 9. But this has to do a lot with the melody too, and that's what we're going to turn our attention towards. This melody is constructed in a classic format known as the period, which is typically an 8-measure line consisting of 2 4-measure phrases. The first 4 measures make up the antecedent phrase, and the second 4 measures make up the consequent. Faure achieves this by initially having the cello outline a G minor triad. The line ascends from a low D all the way up to a high B flat before descending by stepwise motion to G, and then landing on A when D minor over F makes an appearance. And then in the last 2 measures, we hear the focus is on the dominant scale degree, D, which is embellished by the lower and upper neighbor tones C and E. The second phrase starts out identically with an ascending G minor triad arpeggio, but starting on beat 6 of measure 6, we hear the melody transposed down by a major second, which accommodates the F minor 7 harmony. It also has the melody resting on G rather than A, and this is important since the melody will then leap down by an octave to a lower G, and like before, will make use of neighbor tones to surround the note, these being A and F sharp. Unlike before, however, the melody has a little bit of variation in that we're going to hear the minor third B flat rather than only the neighbor tones A and F sharp. So falling in line with the typical structure of a period, we're hearing the antecedent phrase end on a weaker dominant scale degree, followed by the consequent phrase ending on the tonic scale degree. So overall, we have a strong melody supported by a fantastic use of chromatic harmony, displaying sounds that are both modal and tonal. And though there's plenty of other great information happening in this piece, we're going to go ahead and bring it to a close. So with this analysis present, let's go ahead and take another listen to the excerpt. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this exploration of Faure and are looking forward to future endeavors. We'll certainly be returning to this piece in other episodes, but if you happen to have any requests for future explorations of Faure's music, feel free to let me know. And should you have any thoughts or questions regarding the content, let me know those as well. Otherwise, thank you for watching another episode of Music Theory with GUIM.